Welcome to episode 2 of the B8 Big Turbo series. Last week you saw us install an intake manifold on this car, and today you're going to see us install a clutch. But luckily, we have access to a decent sized garage with a lift. Let's get to it. Okay, so yeah, today we're installing the clutch, and that's about it. I'm doing this basically as preventative measure, so I don't have to replace a clutch like right after I tune the new turbo in the car. So getting this done, gonna break it in, drive it around a lot, and then on to installing the turbo. So for this episode, it's clutch. So let's get to work. That thing's greasy. Yay! The factory clutch on the manual B8s seems to be a bit of a mystery. Some say it can handle somewhat decent power numbers, while others say it gives out with just an ECU tune. Either way, I really want to do things right with this car, so based off of past positive experience with this company, I went with a SouthBend Stage 2 endurance clutch with an OEM dual mass flywheel, conservatively rated to about 440 foot-pounds. Not that I'll be making that much power right away, but good to have. Right off the bat, it appears it takes 2 of us to disconnect a battery, so this should go well. Next up, we can start disassembling the front end. Out comes the splash shield, X-brace, and the exhaust. If you've ever owned a car in Wisconsin, you'll understand. Don't break, don't break, don't break. And because the downpipe on this car has one of the most frustratingly placed flanges, we had to get a little clever with some extensions.
Damn, I can't believe that actually worked.
But with that finally disconnected, the exhaust can come out, and I can make a stupid face.
Here we go.
One of many. Alright, let's run it like this from now on.
Holy you should start.
No. If I had one piece of advice for anyone buying a VW or Audi, get yourself a set of triple squares like these. Even if you don't think you'll need them, you will. Like right here, for example, on the steering shaft.
Why does this skeeve me out so much?
There's also a mount for the downpipe on the bell housing that we need to remove with a handy combination of extensions. Now I can start removing the 3 bolts holding the flywheel to the flex plate. But because the clutch moves with the crankshaft, Rusty has to push the opposite way with a breaker bar on the crank bolt. With those out, the clutch and flywheel are disconnected from the engine, which means they're ready to come out when the transmission does. In order to pull the trans off of the engine, we need to make room by getting the drive shaft out of the way. Some B8s have the drive shafts bolted up to the output shaft, but mine bolts to the rear diff, so we had to disconnect it in the back and hang it with some zip ties.
Cool. Drive shaft is not out, but it's there.
Moving back to the front, it's time to unbolt the front axles from the transmission. With With Rusty's help keeping the shaft from moving, they come out easily. Then it's on to the small bits on the transmission itself, like this phallic-looking slave cylinder, the gear selector, and some sensors. And finally, we can start removing the bolts holding the bell housing to the block. We're almost ready to take this behemoth out. Well, we don't have access to a trans jack right now. Actually, we do have access.
I'm just putting my pants on.
We're using this hefty table and a floor jack. Next best thing. Unfortunately, taking the whole transmission out of the car is the most difficult part of the process. We've got to be extra careful not to pinch, bend, or break anything removing it from its very small home. I know it seems like we work fast, seeing as we're only 6 minutes into this video, but this part literally took hours, and many interesting positions. Oh, there's my butt. Okay, it's really good.
This sucks. Trying to make your stay a little bit more comfortable.
Okay.
That's one way to do it. That's not good.
We'll get it.
I don't know how the you like. Who do you need up on the table?
Okay, that's enough boring stuff. Let's get this out of here. With the extra help of Rusty's dad, we're back on track. Which should really go to show, doing this alone in my garage would have seriously been impossible.
Good job. Got it.
Now comes the easy part of removing the clutch, pilot, and throwout bearing, and replacing them with fresh, new parts. Remember to always clean your shaft. Before going ahead and putting everything back in, I'm also replacing my rear main seal, as just about everyone else in the world would recommend doing, because you're already in there and it's a very easy replacement, but a common point of failure. If it goes later down the road, that means I'd have to do this whole process over again. My new rear main seal came with a billet aluminum housing, which might be a little bit overkill, but I really don't want to have to do this again. All right, it is day 2 of installing my clutch on the car. Yesterday, we finished off the night by basically getting the clutch and everything back into the transmission, and now it's time to get the transmission back in the car. So based on how easy it was yesterday, it should be a piece of cake. So yeah, let's get to it. One thing I feel I should mention for any V8 owners watching this, the installation thread we were following suggested using a combination of extensions to get to the bolts on top of the trans, but they are far easier to access from above the engine. So, next time I guess. Welcome to my home. I've been here for a few years now. You know, most people get a lift so they can stand under the car, but I get a lift so I can lay down on a table underneath the car. This is the angle I have to be at to get the bolts at the top of the transmission, but it's working, and it's much easier without the down plate. But the rest of the process goes pretty quickly, being just the reverse of what we did yesterday. And remember last episode when I mentioned small spaces and my fat hands? That's nothing compared to this. But we got it done. The last pieces of the puzzle are the exhaust, X-brace, and axles. Now, I have to admit, we did have one problem that wasn't caught on camera that set us back about 2 hours. When mating the trans to the engine, we accidentally sandwiched the wires to the O2 sensor, which meant we had to pull the trans back off about an inch and pick up a new O2 sensor from the parts store. But after that fiasco and $150 later, with an extremely thorough examination of the car, we are ready to give it a whirl. So we've gone around the car about like 30 times, found a few problems but got those out of the way, and finally time to turn it over, so give it a try. Alright. So, it works so far. It backs up, goes forward. So, if at the very least I can make it home in first gear. So yeah, now time to drive it. Doesn't look like anything's leaking. It shouldn't. But yeah, let's take it for a drive and see if it didn't totally f it up. I know, don't pay, so I'll just address that because I'm sure people say it in the comments. I got a bunch of lights on the dash because I broke an ABS sensor a couple of weeks ago doing my wheel bearings. I have it, and I should have changed it today, but I had other things to do, so I'll get to it. All right, so first impressions, it's like almost softer than the stock clutch. I'm a little surprised by that. I figured it would have been a lot stiffer, but actually in my experience, this is my second SouthBend clutch I've had. I had one on my Talon when I was, well, I had it until this year, but I got it 10 years ago, and I put a SouthBend clutch in it, and it was softer than the factory one. And this one also feels very soft, so it's comfortable, and I can go through all the gears. So that's a good sign. The break-in period for this is like 500 miles. SouthBend clutch was actually super cool, and they sent a like a chart that says if you got this clutch, you got a break-in period for like this long, whatever. So I'm really happy they did that because there's always like mixed messages on how long your break-in period should be. Like 500 miles for this, I'll do the break-in period, then I'll install the new turbo and then get it tuned and hopefully be making a few more horsepower. But yeah, I'm gonna drive it around a little more just to feel it out, and then we'll go back and wrap the episode. All right, yeah, so we're finally done. I am exhausted, I'm filthy. I can't wait to get a shower. Absolutely could not have happened if we didn't have access to a lift and the tools in this garage. So thanks, Rusty, for, well, both of you guys, thanks for your help all weekend. And Rusty's dad, Carl, he doesn't like to be on camera. He's made that very clear a couple of times to me, but I'd like to thank him publicly in this because this is incredible. Like, not everybody's just gonna let you use their lift for free. So that's it for this episode. Tune in next week where we'll be installing the turbo. If you want to support the channel and you like what I do, head over to flink-films.com. I'll put the link in the description. You can pick up some merch under the shop section.
Let's take a shower. Not together.
All right, we're back another day on the job. So day 4,000.